With so many different strategies that FPL managers can take going into game week 1, in today's video I'm going to show you 5 different drafts that all have completely different players with completely different strategies, and hopefully you can align yourself with one of these and build your perfect team. So as always, if you look forward to today's video, make sure to drop a like, and of course if you haven't already, make sure to smash that subscribe button for daily fantasy content in the lead up to that Friday game week 1 deadline. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, I'm going to show you what I'm going to call the Mo Salah team, because I think right now a lot of managers are leaning towards Mo Salah as opposed to Erling Haaland as their premium of choice. And with the ownership of Mo Salah being about 55% and Erling Haaland about 18%, that kind of justifies it in the numbers that we are seeing. So what I'm going to firstly show you here is what I'm just calling a nice safe team for game week 1, and it's going to include a lot of highly owned players but also price points that allow you to be really flexible in those opening game weeks. So in terms of the goalkeeper, and it's worth noting, all of these teams would have used the full budget of 100 million. So goalkeeper wise, I think the 4.5s are okay. So we're going to go for Kelleher and Dubravka. Dubravka features very heavily in all of these drafts because we are anticipating him to eventually be a starting 4 million goalkeeper. So it's a little bit of a gift that's been wrapped up for us that we kind of need to take. Kelleher, currently yellow flagged, but we are anticipating him to be available. Now, what I do like about this team, as I discussed, is the team structure is really strong. So we got the 6 million defender in Virgil van Dijk. That could be whoever you want. If you're leaning more towards 8 Nori, is a bit more of an exciting pick. It could be 8 Nori. Otherwise, you could go towards somebody like a Gabriel if we feel like Arsenal's defence is a little bit more watertight than that of Liverpool's. The 5.5 million defender, I think, is really important. It allows you to pivot, and that could be anybody. You could go to Pedro Porro if you want to be a bit more exciting, or you could be a little bit safe like me and go for Murillo. The two 4.5s right now, we got Diouf and Richards, and Esteve at 4 million. Now, in terms of the midfielders, what I like about, again, the midfield is that we can have those price points and those important players. Palmer, Salah, Bruno Fernandes. Now, again, if you want to free up some funds, you could downgrade Bruno Fernandes to Florian Wirtz, and you have 0.5 million to invest elsewhere. Maybe you want to improve one of those defenders, which is absolutely fine. But as you can see, you can get the 3 main guys in midfield. The 6.5s, I think the closer we're getting to the deadline, I think we're all thinking to ourselves, they're not as good as what we first anticipated. But you can get one of those, and then of course the 5.5 or 5 million, Anderson, Reinders, Dewsbury Hall, all popping off as possible options. And what I do like about this team is that a lot of people are moving towards one up front. My most recent draft had that structure. But of course, the forwards are actually quite exciting this season. We just had the price reveal of Sesko at 7.5 million. And we got people like Mateta at 7.5. So I think throughout the season, there is always going to be a 7.5 million or around forward that is doing really well. I'll be very surprised if these forwards don't succeed this season, because there's a group of proven ones, Chris Wood, Mateta, and there's a group of exciting ones, as we discussed, like a Sesko. So it gives us the opportunity to have Mateta or João Pedro, and we can also have the price point of Watkins, which I think the closer we're getting to the deadline, people are realising it's so important, because if Isak goes to Liverpool and suddenly becomes essential, easy way for you to get up to him. If Ekitike at 8.5, the Isak transfer doesn't happen, easy route to Ekitike. So with this team structure here, it's the Salah team. It's probably the team that you're seeing quite a lot of online. I think it's a really safe way to get yourself into game week 1. You've got some of the highly owned players, which is great. You've got the team structure in place that allows you to be really flexible in the opening weeks. And I also think you can be a bit more exciting with some differentials if you want to. So let me know in the comment section if you've gone for the Salah team. We've got 4 more to show you though. So I spoke about how Mo Salah is probably everybody's go-to guy. Well, let me show you a team without Mo Salah and Erling Haaland, because I'm seeing a lot of people off the back of the Community Shield building a team thinking that they can go without Mo Salah. And I'm not here to sit and tell you that you can't go without him. I think there's definitely a strategy to go without him, but you got to make sure that you're putting your money in the right areas. Otherwise, I'm saying to you, yeah, your team looks okay, but are you actually truly benefiting from spending that money? So let's take a look at the team and how it varies from what I previously showed you. So you can get a bit of a better goalkeeper. I think Sells is an upgrade on any 4.5 million there. So naturally, we got the money to go there. In terms of the defenders, again, with the defensive contributions being introduced this year, we don't know the full extent of it and how important that is going to be, but we know defenders are now more important than ever. So going without Mo Salah means that we can have a 6 million, 2 5.5s, a 4.5 and a 4 million. And the more I get closer to the game week 1 deadline, the more I do like the 5.5s. Someone like a Pedro Porro has set pieces, possible defensive contributions, and open play attacking threat. So these 5.5s, Danny Munoz, I get the appeal of trying to stuff your team full of those. In terms of the midfield, this is of course where you really have to put your money, because I still think it rings true today. The midfielders are some of the most important players in FPL, and they have been that way for a long time now. And of course, with defensive contributions now being added on for midfielders, not many are going to hit it that are also viable FPL picks. But take someone like a Bruno Fernandes, for example, who appeared in the previous draft. This is a guy who is going to get attacking returns, is going to play 90 minutes, and probably will hit the 12 threshold for defensive contributions. Not each and every week like people are telling you he is going to, but maybe 1 in 3, or maybe even 50% of the time if Man United is still running around like headless chickens at times. So with this midfield, what you can do, you can keep Palmer and Bruno Fernandes, of course, but then we can have Florian Wirtz as our Salah alternative, Bukayo Saka at 10 million, which I do think is an incredible differential for these opening game weeks, in particular in game week 2, when we're looking for a differential captain, and people are probably going to just land on Cole Palmer as an example. Saka at home against Leeds enables you to really be exciting with your captain. And then we got Kudos at 6.5 million. So the cheapest midfielder is 6.5 as opposed to 5.5 in the previous draft. And we also were able to maintain the forwards. Now, you definitely could restructure this team, increase Mark Gui to a playing forward. But to be honest with you, I would rather put my money in the defence and the midfield and keep the two of Watkins and João Pedro. So in terms of the team that I showed you before, the Mo Salah team in this one here, even though I think you probably will look at this and think, naturally, this team isn't that much better, we're able to get up to Florian Wirtz as our 4th midfielder effectively, which is really important. And we've been able to bring up the floor of our defenders to these 5.5s, which I think is actually way more important than probably what we're first perceiving. So all in all, I think this team's really strong. The thing about it, of course, you've got to be a little bit fun with your captaincy, because you don't have the safety blanket of Mo Salah like we've had in years gone by. But when I look at this team here, well, for game week 1, the captaincy could probably go on someone like a Cole Palmer and you just back him at home. In game week 2, we got Bukayo Saka at home against Leeds. Game week 3, we got Bruno Fernandes at home against Burnley. So I think there are plenty of options available to us. The lack of penalty taker, of course, in that Liverpool team, a slight concern. But if Florian Wirtz is as good as what we're anticipating, then while he might not cover Mo Salah, he might do enough for us to pick him and put the rest of the funds in the team. And I think the closer we get to the deadline, the more people think about it. I think they might be tempted to go without Mo Salah. But for me, I still think Mo Salah is key in our Game Week 1 teams, but please let me know in the comment section if you're going without him. So next up, I want to show you a Game Week 1 bench boost team, because when we had the announcement that we're getting double chips, first lot in the first half of the season, second batch in the second half of the season, the bench boost became a viable strategy to use in the opening game weeks. So what I wanted to show you here is basically a team that actually would work and do okay in that opening week. So in terms of the goalkeepers, people are going for a bench boost of Dubravka, even possibly into game week 2. And until I actually see him play for Burnley, I'm slightly concerned that maybe there's a little bit of fitness issues or something along the way. So just be cautious. If you're going for Dubravka in a game week 1 bench boost, make sure you got the assurance that the manager has come out and stated that Dubravka is fit and available and playing for game week 1. Otherwise, you're playing your bench boost and straight away your goalkeeper isn't featuring. So a nice combination for game week 1 is Kelleher and Verbruggen. Yes, you're spending a bit more money on the goalkeepers, but I think it's justifiable if we have those uncertainties on Dubravka. Now, in terms of the defenders, yes, you can find a way to spend a bit more money on the defenders, and of course, you could take money out of this team, but I think it's very difficult to get yourself like 6 million, couple of 5.5s, and keep the team a playing 15. So we have got Juve is a bit of a differential away against Sunderland, which is really exciting. We've got the double Nottingham Forest defence of Williams and Aina. Now, yes, I think Murillo and Milenkovic are more exciting picks and better picks, but you can get both of these for 10 million as opposed to 11 million for the other two, and that's where it really lies. Steve, not ideal away against Tottenham, but it's very hard to find a playing 4 million defender right now. And again, if you can upgrade that to 4.5, that's great. But we also think about this team a bit longer term. If you want a wildcard straight away, then great, get a 4.5 in. But you want to make sure your team is at least structured to not force you to wildcard the week straight after. And then we've got Van de Ven, a really obvious choice. Again, I prefer Pedro Porro, but in a bench boost team, Van de Ven's a really nice enabler. Now, in terms of the midfielders, Salah and Palmer are just absolute non-negotiables in my eyes if you're going to bench boost in game week 1. Florian Wirtz is in for that home game against Bournemouth, of course. Kudus at home against Burnley. Again, we need to monitor the Super Cup against PSG, but I think he's a great choice. And then Anderson, 5.5 million, home game against Brentford to kick things off. And we know that if you're not going to wildcard early, a player that should actually be quite a nice one to tick over each and every week for your team. So it isn't forcing you to bench to wildcard straight away. And then in terms of the front three, this is the biggest problem for teams because a lot of people are bench boosting in game week 1 and their bench is Dubravka, they've got a Steve, they've got Mark Gui. That just ain't going to work for a bench boost. There's no certainty on Mark Gui's minutes. So you unfortunately have to pump some money in the forward line. Now, I get it. You could easily go for Beto or Barry of Everton and that could be your choice. But to be honest, I have no idea which one's playing. You could get 60 of Beto, 30 of Barry, or the other way round. And again, do you want to do that? Is the bench boost then even worth it? And I think the answer is no, to be honest. I think we're then just playing the bench boost for the sake of the bench boost. So if I'm going to play the bench boost, I'm going to use it in this week. And sorry, I should have updated to say the chip was a bench boost in this scenario. So Pedro, Fulkrug and Watkins are in. Again, I think this is watertight for the opening weeks if you need to keep this team. Now, of course, if you need to downgrade it, then yes, you could downgrade Ollie Watkins to a 7.5 million like a Chris would. Take the 1.5 million and invest it elsewhere in your teams. That's absolutely fine. But I think you can build a good enough team while keeping a really strong front three for those opening weeks. But you do have to make some sacrifices in the defence. And based on what we're seeing with the defensive contributions, that might not be the way to go about it. But I think this is the only way that you can build a really solid game week 1 team that you know players are actually going to play. You're not just bench boosting rubbish. And it can actually be sustainable for those opening game weeks. So a strategy that is building a lot of traction right now, probably because of the analytics kind of dropping, and it is the 4-5-1 formation. I dropped this on my latest draft. Safe to say you guys were a little bit dubious about that team, but I do think it works, and hear me out. So in terms of the goalkeepers, again, we're going to go for cheap, Kelleher and Dubravka. We're not looking to bench boost in this opening week. Now, of course, going 4-5-1, let's just bring it straight to the top. You're going for 2 4.5s. Not ideal. If we get the dream scenario that Mark Gui becomes a starter for Sunderland, which I'm going to be honest with you, ain't going to happen, especially in these opening game weeks, there's no world. Mayenda is definitely going to be the main man. So Mark Gui, just if you're going for this formation, don't be thinking, yeah, but what if? Just say to yourself, you've got 2 guys, he's going to be second bench, Barnes is going to be third bench, and that is it. So Watkins has to be your forward because you just cannot go down to a 7.5 million and then all of a sudden you miss out on Watkins in these opening weeks. I just think if you're going to go for one forward, it's got to be Watkins, is my personal opinion. So what I do like about this is that you can still keep the money in the defence and the midfield. And if we are anticipating defensive contributions to be this important, then at least we're putting the money in the areas that we think are the most valuable. We're not putting it in forwards where they could be a little bit ropey. And I kind of get the argument because Isak right now is just an absolute void. Ekitike, unproven forward. João Pedro, yes, I think he's fantastic, but could we see Delap steal minutes from him? Possibly. Solanke injured. Chris Wood, well, Forest haven't scored a goal pretty much in pre-season. So you can see all these things of why managers are getting a little bit off-put by forwards. And then when you drop down to the 6.5s and the 6s, you've got to ask yourself the question, is a 6 million Fulkrug better than that of a defender at a similar price point? And I think a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that he isn't. So as you can see, defensively, we can go big. Gabriel at 6, Porro at 5.5, Murillo at 5.5. And the important thing about this is that because we have 2 guys that are locked on the bench, your other defender has to be really good. So you have to get a 4.5. You can't just run it with Steve at Burnley. So we've got Diouf at 4.5, Richards at 4.5 million. In terms of the midfielders, now again, you can change this, but we have just tried to go all in on the midfielders. So we got Salah, Bruno, Palmer, and Wirtz. We've gone really big on the 4 main guys. But then we're kind of relying on Dewsbury Hall at 5 million. Now again, if you're a little bit dubious about this team, a few things you can do. Watkins down to a 7.5. I don't like it. But then you could put the 1.5 million up from Dewsbury Hall to a 6.5 and then you're locked in. That's absolutely fine. Otherwise, what you could do, take a bit of money out of the defence, maybe out of someone like a Murillo down to a Williams, and then you can increase Dewsbury Hall to an Anderson and Nottingham Forest, a player that at least you know is going to play every single minute. But I do feel like Dewsbury Hall actually is becoming an incredible enabler. Yes, they've signed Jack Grealish. Yes, they do have a few new boys through the door, but I'm anticipating Dewsbury Hall to be a bit of a mainstay in that team. And at 5 million, he kind of enables this strategy. I get the concerns. Yes, you only have one injury and you're basically down to a bare 11 because we've got 2 non-playing players at the opening game weeks. But I think a lot of managers are going to land on this team just because you get Wirtz, Palmer, Bruno, Salah. And really, those are the boys you want as opposed to the forwards. So let me know your thoughts. I know it's controversial, but I think managers are going to move to this team. And finally, I wanted to give you the template high ownership team. Now, this isn't necessarily the template team, but based on the ownership, I just want to show you a team because this is absolutely a strategy that you could go down. Because we need to remember, if a highly owned player does well, then you kind of are going to get hurt with your overall rank in the early days. Now, prices will also probably increase unless they are 60% owned. Then naturally it's a bit more difficult because of the volume in of transfers. It's hard for those prices to increase. But if you do go without a highly owned player, let's take João Pedro as an example, and he does just bag a brace in the opening week, that is going to really hurt your rank in that opening game week. So a strategy that a lot of managers I know go for is just go for the highly owned players in the opening weeks, knowing that your rank can't really get hurt too bad. And then you can move away from those that aren't actually worth the ownership. So goalkeepers have always been the same. These are the main two. Defensively, Frimpong, one of the most owned defenders in the game. Obviously, slight risk with Conor Bradley, but while he's out injured, Frimpong becomes great. Wan-Bissaka, highly owned. Again, you can go for the alternative in Juve, but based on this team, we got Wan-Bissaka, Esteve, Van de Ven, and Ola Aina. While we're trying to get Murillo in, Ola Aina is the ownership pick. And again, if he does do well, then that is going to hurt your rank. In terms of the midfielders, similar names. Salah, Palmer, Wirtz, Ndiaye, and Kudus. Pretty similar team to what we've been looking at before. And then a front three of Mark Gui to kind of enable everything else. João Pedro and Gyökeres. Now, I haven't spoke about Gyökeres because, as he said, 9 million, it's always been Ollie Watkins in my team. I truly do believe that is the route to go for. I think Kai Havertz will get minutes in this Arsenal team. Watkins literally has no alternative. But if I'm wrong, and Gyökeres does well against Man United, bags a brace against Leeds, that's going to hurt the overall rank. So this is an example of a high ownership team that you absolutely could just go towards because this is a really good team. You bench Mark Gui, you bench your Steve, and you bench one of the cheaper defenders each and every week. You play that 5-man midfield, and worst case, you bring in a 4-man defence and you bench one of the midfielders. That is not a bad strategy at all. It's got some great price points that allow you to then move sideways. So let's say Gyökeres suddenly needs to become Watkins. You go sideways to him. If you need to go Frimpong to another premium, you can do so. Lots and lots of variety with this team. And again, you could drop Kudus to a 5.5 later down the line. So I absolutely get managers going down this route. And I've done it in the past. And it actually is quite a safe way to start the season. And it's actually not a bad way to go. Yes, guys. Okay, so that's going to wrap up today looking at those 5 key drafts going into game week 1. Let me know in the comment section which strategy are you going towards, or is there one that I've missed that is pretty obvious and maybe I should consider as well. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and of course hit that subscribe button. Always massively appreciated. And any questions, anything you want to say, drop it in the comment section. Also, Patreon is now live, so make sure you do check that out. I will be doing mini leagues and all that good stuff, so make sure you do get involved. Have an amazing day. Take care. I'll see you real soon. Cheers.